work stress. And no, we're not saying you have to, eliminate stress completely. I
Right.
mean, who hasn't had that like little bit of pressure that actually helps them do their best work? But it's when it tips into being chronic, that's when the trouble really starts, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about recognizing like what's a healthy level of pressure and when does it tip over into being overload.
Mm-hmm. And that's why you, our wonderful listeners, requested this deep dive. So we've dug into all the great stuff you shared with us, and we're going to unpack the most useful insights and practical strategies that we found.
Hmm.
One of the things that really struck me going through this material is how sneaky work stress can actually be. It kind of disguises itself as something else completely,
Yeah.
you know?
It's so true. We normalize it, don't we?
Yes.
Like you brush off that fatigue. It's like, ugh, I just need another coffee.
Yes.
Or, oh, I've got another tension headache. I'll just pop another painkiller,
It's 2 p.m., time for my afternoon headache. It's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Ignoring those subtle signals, it can have some, well, pretty serious consequences down the road.
It really can.
One of the things our sources highlighted is this link between chronic work stress and higher risk of like serious stuff like anxiety and depression.
Unfortunately, yeah, the research on that is pretty solid. If
Yeah.
you're constantly in that fight or flight mode,
Yeah.
it takes a toll on you, both physically and mentally.
Yeah. So stress is sneaky and ignoring it is bad news, basically. So how do we learn to spot it? What are some of those red flags that maybe aren't as obvious?
Well, you mentioned fatigue. That's definitely a big one. But also, think about your sleep.
Okay.
Are you having trouble falling asleep? Waking up in the middle of the night, your mind's racing.
Oh, yeah.
That's your body trying to tell you something's up.
And it's not just physical, right? I feel like stress messes with your emotions, too.
Oh, 100%. Like, are you more irritable, easier to get frustrated,
Mm-hmm.
snapping at people you love? That difficulty concentrating that a lot of us are dealing with these days.
Oh, the brain fog is real.
Yeah.
It's like my brain just checks out.
Yeah.
And we can't forget about eating habits,
Oh, huge.
stress eating, or forgetting to eat entirely.
Both ends of the spectrum.
So we're getting a clearer picture of what stress actually looks like.
Right.
Recognizing it, that's step one. But what do we do about it? The good news is our sources are full of really practical strategies, and I love that. So let's dive into the first one. And I gotta say, this one surprised me a little bit. Journaling.
Yeah.
It sounds, I don't know, maybe a little old school,
Yeah, it does.
but, never underestimate putting pen to paper.
Right.
And we're not talking about, writing War and Peace here.
Yeah, not your whole life story.
One of the sources called it a stress log, which I kind of love.
Yeah.
So it's about just taking a few minutes each day, maybe at the end of the day, to jot down those moments where you really felt that surge of stress.
Uh-huh.
But here's the thing, get specific.
Yes. Specificity is key.
Don't just write ugh, I had a stressful day. What was it? Was it that meeting that went off the rails? Was it a deadline looming? Was it that email that, just sent you into a tailspin?
Well, exactly. Oh, totally.
And even our expert here mentioned turning into the physical sensations.
Yes.
I think that's so smart.
It's amazing what your body will tell you if you just, pay attention.
Yeah.
So you're thinking back to that stressful thing that happened, what was happening in your body? Was your heart racing with your stomach, clenched up? Were your palms sweaty?
It's like you become this detective
Yeah.
of your own stress.
I
And you're
agree.
like, oh, okay, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, you start to notice the little signs. And then once you've kind of, ID'd those triggers, those physical reactions, then take it a step further. What could you have done, even a little bit differently, to maybe handle that situation better?
Oh, okay, yeah. I like that because it's like, instead of feeling helpless, you're
Yeah.
like, wait a minute. Okay,
Yeah.
so I can't control everything,
Right.
but I can control how I respond.
Exactly. And you might find if you do this kind of stress logging consistently, you might start to notice some patterns.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe it's the reply all email chains that always set you off.
Oh my gosh.
Or back-to-back meetings with no break. You start to see it.
And then once you see the pattern, you can experiment with solutions.
Exactly.
Like, okay, I'm going to filter those reply alls into a separate folder. Yes.
So they're not hijacking my entire day.
Totally.
Or I'm going to actually schedule those little breaks
Yes.
between meetings.
There you go. Now you're talking about reclaiming your time and attention, which brings us beautifully to our next strategy. Mini breaks throughout the workday.
Yes. Tiny vacations.
Yeah.
Everyone loves those.
Exactly.
Even if it's just for 5 minutes.
Totally.
And our sources were huge fans of these little bursts of disconnection.
Oh, for good reason.
Yeah, and I get it, right? Our brains need those moments to recharge, just like anything else.
Well, think about it. You wouldn't expect your phone or your laptop to just run at 100% capacity 24/7 without, like, plugging it in,
We'll
right?
be like, this is magic.
Exactly.
But we expect that of ourselves.
Yeah.
And we're not machines. We're not. We are human beings that need a moment
Yes.
to just pause and renew.
And the beauty of these mini breaks, it can be anything that actually helps you detach, even just briefly, from work mode.
Absolutely.
So our sources mentioned listening to a quick podcast,
Yeah.
stepping outside, get a little fresh air, even just like closing your eyes at your desk and taking a couple of deep breaths.
100%. It's finding what works for you and building it into your day.
Totally. You know, I've gotten into this habit, which I really like, of setting a timer on my phone for 5 minutes. Every hour it goes off. And I get up, I step away from my computer, and I do some stretches, maybe listen to a song. And it's amazing, those little breaks. They totally improve my focus. And they help with that stress.
I love that. And it actually brings up a good point. It's not about adding like more stuff to your already busy schedule.
Yeah.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
Love it. And that kind of leads us to another one of these key strategies that we found in the material, which is time management.
Yes.
I know. It's a loaded term. It can feel very like productivity hacky.
Right.
But I promise this is different.
Yeah, this is not that. This is different.
This is different. It's more like taking back control of your day.
Yes.
Instead of feeling like you're just drowning in like to-dos and emails and all of that.
Exactly. It's about being intentional with your time and your energy.
Okay.
And one of the tools actually that came up in one of the sources that I really like for this is the Eisenhower Matrix.
Okay.
It's a classic, and for good reason.
Okay. For those of us who are like, Eisenhower Matrix, what? Break it down.
So basically, you're dividing all your tasks into 4 quadrants.
Yeah?
Based on 2 things, urgent and important.
Okay.
So you've got urgent and important. Important but not urgent.
Right.
Urgent but not important. And then, neither urgent nor important.
Yeah, like who cares?
Exactly. Like just get rid of those.
Yeah.
But so obviously urgent and important, that's like where all the fire drills go.
Right. The things you absolutely have to do.
You got to do it now.
Yeah.
But the magic of this tool is that it pushes you to spend more time in that important but not urgent quadrant.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's like you got to get ahead of it instead of constantly feeling behind.
Yes, exactly. Proactive instead of reactive.
I like it.
Yeah. So that's like long-term projects, strategy, relationship building, taking care of your own professional development.
Yeah.
All that stuff that kind of gets pushed to the back burner when you're just like,
Right, when everything's on fire.
yes, exactly.
But it's so important.
It is. It's like sharpening the saw.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I like that.
That time you invest in it, it comes back to you tenfold because you're more efficient, you're more effective.
Totally.
And when you have that control over your time, it gives you the space to set better boundaries too.
Yes. Boundaries, we have to talk about this.
Right.
Because this is huge when it comes to like managing work stress.
Yes.
But it can be so uncomfortable.
Oh, it can be so hard.
Like, how do you tell someone no without feeling like you're going to get in trouble or like you're letting them down?
Right. And you don't want to damage relationships.
Yeah.
One of the tips that I really liked from the sources was having a few phrases in your back pocket.
Oh, smart.
So instead of just being like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. It's like, let me just check my schedule and get back to you.
Yeah.
Or, I'd love to help, but I'm at capacity right now.
Totally.
Things like that.
It's assertive, but not aggressive.
Exactly. It gives you that little bit of breathing room
Totally.
to decide if you can actually do it.
Yes.
Without just immediately saying yes and then regretting it later.
Oh, I'm so guilty of that.
We've all been there.
And sometimes it's about having that bigger conversation, right?
Yes.
Like with your boss, with your colleagues.
Yes, absolutely.
About workload, about priorities.
Because they might not even realize, what they're asking of you.
They're just like, oh, can you just do this one more thing? You're like, I have 17 other one more things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So communication is key.
Communication is key. Okay.
Yes.
I'm hearing that, something else that's coming up for me as we're like going through all this.
Yeah.
Is that self-care is huge.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it's not just bubble baths and face masks, although I'm here for that too.
Of course. Those are great.
But it's like those non-negotiables
Yes.
in your day-to-day life
Yes.
that help you just like recharge and be your best self.
Exactly.
Whether that's like getting enough sleep,
Yes.
eating healthy-ish,
Most of the time.
most of the time,
Yeah.
moving your body in ways that feel good, taking a few minutes just to, like, disconnect.
It all comes back to that sustainable productivity. You
Totally.
can't pour from an empty cup.
I love that. That's such a good one.
Yeah. Got to fill your own cup first.
So we've covered a lot today, from spotting those, like, sneaky signs of stress to giving you some actual tools to deal with it.
Yes.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, is there, like, one key takeaway, one thing you want to leave our listeners with that they can, like, take action on right now?
You have more power than you think you do
Mm.
when it comes to work stress. It's not about becoming immune to stress. That's not realistic.
Right.
But it's about deciding how you're going to respond to it.
Right. That's what we were saying earlier.
Exactly. Taking back that control.
Yeah.
Building your resilience.
Yeah. It's like work doesn't have to be something you just survive.
No. It should be something that you enjoy, at least most of the time.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's about designing a workday that works for you.
Yes. And that feels good.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. This was great.
My pleasure. It was fun.
I learned so much. I feel like our listeners did too.
Good.
And for everyone listening, remember, you're not alone in this.
We're all in this together.
We are all in this together. Experiment with these strategies, see what works for you, and keep prioritizing your own well-being.
Yes.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive, but until then, take care.